Hey everybody, happy Tuesday. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I know a lot of you are dialing in here real quick. You've got Jason Bay and Katie Ray here, and we're going to get started here in a few minutes. We're so excited to have you all. So welcome, welcome.
Yeah, say hi. Let us know who you are, where you're coming from. I'm in Austin, Texas right now. Where are you at, Katie?
I am in Fort Worth, Texas. So
Oh, yeah, we're both in
we're
Texas.
just
Yeah,
keeping it
let us
here
know
in
where you guys
Central
are coming in
Time.
from.
Exactly. Yes. Look at this. Good old Alaska. Another Texan. Sam, thanks for joining. Lucas coming in from Brazil. If y'all want to as well, drop your LinkedIn links in there and we can start connecting with each other. Caitlin, welcome from Denver. Is it snowing out there? I'm sure. Wow, we've got a lot of all over the place here. Cape Cod. Ugh. Jason, I don't know about you. I've always wanted to go to Cape Cod.
I've never been to Cape Cod. Yeah,
I've never been. I think that'd
that's a
be so
bucket
cool.
lister.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool. Jimmy, thanks for dropping your LinkedIn in here. Derek, we see you. Oh my gosh, this is great coming in from
I
Massachusetts.
recognize a bunch of these names too from all the webinars we did with that virtual tour. I recognize a ton of
Oh, that's
people.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for our returnees coming in here. And while we are getting started here, we're going to pop a poll up here just to kind of learn a little bit more about you guys. Want to see kind of what y'all are doing. How many cold calls are you making a day? So as you're putting in your LinkedIn, check out this poll. Let us know what you're doing. I'm glad to see, oh no, never mind. Some of you say none. If you say none, put in the comments, tell us why. Why are you not sending any cold calls? This is so good. Look at all these amazing members coming in here. Enablement for the BDR team. Oh, there we go. That makes sense.
Yeah, this is
Mark's
awesome.
coming in from Hawaii. Mark, is it absolutely beautiful out there right now? No one's picking up right now. That's true. My husband's doing a call blitz right now. So hopefully he'll have some better luck. Let's see. Hey, Daniela, coming in from San Francisco. Wow, this is looking good. Okay, we've still got a little bit. We're at 70% of y'all have voted so far. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Once we get a little bit higher, we'll close this poll so we can have a really good idea of what we're working with today. Wow, we have a lot of people coming from a lot of the same companies. This is so great and all over the world. I mean, this is... Jason, are you so excited? This is so cool.
Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah, hit the poll, you guys. Let us know. I'm really curious to know how many cold calls that you're making right now, because we're going to be talking about objection handling, specifically in cold calls. And some of the stuff we'll talk about will help in a sales context as well, but specifically around cold calling. We'd love to know. Yeah, I got people coming from all over. I'm just looking through the chat. This is awesome.
Yeah, this is so stinking cool. I am adding all of you. Hopefully we can all be connected. This is so fun. Love meeting all sorts of people from all over the world. I absolutely adore that. Yes, if we're lucky, maybe we can get a little song out of Jason with that guitar that we see in the corner. If you're just joining us like Shannon is, let us know how many cold calls are you making per day in the poll that we have going on right now. Wonderful. Yeah, so Jason, we think we can squeeze a song out of you today, or do they need to come back to the AMA in a few weeks and get a song out of you?
I have a spot. I'm going to ask them some questions here in a little bit, and I got a song ready for you when we do that. Yeah.
What should we expect? A little country twang coming in from Austin, or a little reggae from Southern California? What should we expect?
I would say an oldie but a goodie. Hip hop.
But a goodie.
Yeah.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Okay. So it looks like about 50% of y'all do make cold calls, but you don't keep track. I wonder if we can figure out a little bit more of, what that looks like? Do you have a tool that's helping you keep track? Many of you, about 36%, you're making more than 25 per day. If we have all been in a BDR role, many of us have had to make 100 a day. So shout out to those of you making more than 25 a day. And I know some of you had said, if you press no, many of you are in some type of an enablement. And so this is going to be great to learn how to enable your teams. Let's get our second poll up here. What is the most challenging part of handling objections during cold calls? I don't know about you guys. Well, hopefully we're going to start seeing here pretty quick. This poll is launched. I'm not sure what to say. Prospects don't seem like they want to talk to me. I get that all the time. Yeah. That's one of the worst feelings is I know I'm intruding, but maybe this time, maybe it'll work. Maybe it will.
It's like that weird feeling that you have to ignore. Yes. You know, that like high school, I was so shy in high school. You know, like I was like somewhat popular, played sports. People knew who I was, grew up in a small town, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But talking to people, if I felt like I always felt like I was bugging people, you know, talking to people that I didn't know. So yeah, definitely relate to you on that. This is cool.
Wow. And while this poll is kind of wrapping up here, so we can jump into things, I just can take a little bit of time, introduce myself. My name is Katie Ray. I am the Community Engagement Manager over at Sales Hacker, and we are so excited to be hosting Jason Bay today. I know a lot of you know why you're here, but for those of you who saw this on your calendar and decided to hop in anyways, we are talking about what do you do now that you've made the call? How do you handle these objections? What does this look like? How do we get past this panic of, oh my gosh, what if they don't have the budget? What do I ask? What do I do? I don't know. And so we're going to spend a lot of time, and Jason does a fabulous job of getting into the psychology behind it and super practical tips and tricks. And so let's close this poll here. Wow. So the most challenging part of handling objections, prospects don't seem like they want to talk to me. That looks like a clear winner. So I'm sure, Jason, you probably have a lot of great tips and tricks for that. So I'm going to stop this poll as we go through our conversation today. I'm sure all of you are going to have just fabulous questions to ask him. If you have any questions whatsoever, drop them in either the Q&A, which we see Al is saying thanks in here. That's going to be the perfect spot. Drop it in the Q&A. I'm going to be monitoring the chat as well, just in case some of you throw them in there as well. And let's just get started on this. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Perfect. Okay. Take it away, J-Bay.
Cool. All right. Here, let me get this full screen real quick. Cool. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys having me. This is a picture of me and my brother, Travis. So I think I was about 5 years old. And the reason why I'm showing this picture is when I was 5, and my mom does not stop telling me this story every time I come home, what we would do is we would dress up like Ninja Turtles. And I don't know if you guys ever dressed up like anything before going to the grocery store, but we'd have like the swords in the back, you know, pretend like we had turtle shell, you know, that stuff going on. And one time I went over and I remember this, I kicked over a row of spaghetti jars, right? Like Ninja style, Ninja Turtle style. And my mom, as you can imagine, got super pissed. Yeah. And what she told me that was really interesting was, and it made me want to do the opposite, was she said, you guys can't bring toys to the store anymore. You guys can't do this. And I don't know about you, but when you're a little kid, you ever feel like you couldn't talk to the adults or like feel like you couldn't have a say because, well, they're the adult. It's my mom. And it actually made us like sneak toys and stuff like that in. But sometimes we can get into this position where, I don't know if you guys have ever felt this. You ever made a cold call and maybe you're only a few years on the job and you call it an executive that's been doing it for 20, 30 years. You open up their LinkedIn profile and you just look at the profile and you're like, what could I possibly say that this person would want to be interested in? And it almost brings us back to like when we were a little kid and like the adults were too cool for us, right? We didn't have anything that an adult would care about. And sometimes what I think that we forget, And this is sort of the foundation for everything that I'm going to talk about today, is that when we're prospecting, like the whole point is just to start a conversation. Like you're talking to people, and when we're prospecting, when we're making cold calls, when we're objection handling, we're just talking to another person. And the whole point of everything that we're doing is to start a conversation. So this is going to be the foundation behind everything we talk about today. Prospecting and selling are two different activities. And when we're prospecting, we have to make sure that we're not trying to sell anything when we prospect. Our goal is actually not even to get a meeting when we prospect, because you know what has to happen before we get a meeting? We have to start a conversation. So don't prospect to make a sale, prospect to start a conversation. So Katie told you a little bit about me. My name is Jason Bay. You guys can call me J-Bay. I help reps and sales teams who love landing big meetings with prospects, but hate not getting responses to their cold emails or feeling confident when they make cold calls. And what we're going to talk about today is a couple different things. So I'm going to talk about how to deal with call reluctance. Got some cool exercises I'm going to do with you there. We're going to talk about how to avoid what I call the objection, rebuttal, infinity loop. So how do we get out of this never-ending loop where we're going back and forth with a prospect that's not interested in talking to us? And then the last thing that we're going to talk about is what I call the EVO framework, which is empathize, validate, offer for handling objections. So what I want to do real quick before we dig in, and this is like maybe the most important question of them all, Katie, and I'm going to share the sound. We're going to put a little song on. There we go. All right. I would love to know in the chat, just as a little icebreaker here, what was your favorite childhood cereal? What's something that you look back in childhood and you said, holy shit, hopefully I can swear on this. I can't believe I ate that growing up. Love this.
I
love cherry Pop-Tarts.
Corn Pops. Those were like my favorite thing. And they were the weirdest because they weren't like the sugary of them all. But I love Corn Pops. What about you? What was your favorite?
Cherry Pop-Tarts for me.
What?
Yeah.
That's I love cereal.
Well, the Pop-Tart cereal. You remember the Pop-Tart cereal? Yeah. I love what Jonathan said, that my mom allowed or that I had to go to a friend's house after sleepovers.
Oh my gosh, that's not the truth.
Cheerio. Dude, love this. We got all kinds of yummy stuff in here. Keep it coming. This is so funny.
Toast Crunch. Oh yeah, Jimmy knows. Lucky Charms. Nothing was as satisfying as eating all the little marshmallows and then your sibling pouring the Lucky Charms out and there being no marshmallows.
Yep.
Yeah, Jimmy gets it. You get it.
All right, what I'd like to know next, this will give me a really good context into what to talk about. Hit me in the chat. What is the objection that you get the most when you're prospecting? Specifically over the phone, when you're cold calling, hit me in the chat. What's the objection that you get the most? Okay, not interested. That's a common one. Don't need it.
We're not making decisions due to COVID. If that is not the truth, I'm sure every single one of us has heard that within the past 5 months.
Yep, COVID, I'm just writing some of these. We're good, right? Budget.
Oh, political objections. I have actually heard a few of those. I would have never thought that would have been an objection, but depending who you're selling to, changes it. How did you get my number?
That's a good one.
That is good. Planning phase. Yeah, it's too expensive.
2021.
Oh, can you just send me some info? Send me a data sheet. Is that like such a defeating response if I've ever heard one? I already have a vendor.
Okay.
These are great.
Already have a supplier. Okay. These are pretty common. No budget.
Happy with
cool.
Current. Yep.
All right, we're gonna kill the music and we're gonna dig in here. So love the participation, you guys. This is awesome so far. Okay.
Asking your questions. I know Shannon's got a really good one that we're gonna dig into a little bit later. So don't hesitate to put your questions in here because we are monitoring them.
Awesome. Okay, so let's dig in, you guys. So the first thing I want to talk to you guys about is a concept called deconditioning. So the reason why we're talking about deconditioning is, I don't know about you guys, maybe put a 1 into the chat. Does anyone here ever deal with call reluctance? Is anyone, when you go to pick up the phone, you're a little hesitant because you're like, I don't know if I have anything good to share with this person, or what if they reject me? Or, I just don't feel like picking up the phone. Dan puts a lot of 1s. TJ puts a 10. I don't know what a 10 means. That could be 10 out of 10 on the reluctance scale. Cool. So something that everyone deals with, right? So a way that we can, I don't want to say overcome necessarily call reluctance, because I don't know if you can completely overcome it. I've been making cold calls for the last 12 years. So my entire sales career, I'm 31. The only job I've ever had is selling. And I still get nervous when I pick up the phone and make up a cold call. So there's a 4-part process that we can do. And the first part is, so the first step in dealing with call reluctance is we want to do something called identify the pattern. So this is kind of the easy part, right? The pattern is when I go to make cold calls, I feel really anxious, let's say. Right? So I feel anxious. That's a pattern. This is kind of the easy part to recognize, right? This second part is really important. What we're going to do in the second part is we need to pinpoint the trigger. So what I want you to think about here is getting super micro specific and looking at the exact moment in time, what you're doing, where you're at. Jonathan says this is like a 90s to 2000s overhead projector. It is exactly like that, Jonathan.
I said the same thing. I love this.
So pinpoint the trigger. What we need to do here is look at the exact moment in time that we feel call reluctant. So what I want you to think about is it, hey, I open up Salesforce, I start looking at the list, or maybe I'm using Outreach as my sales engagement platform, and I go through this, I start dialing the number, and then I have this sinking feeling. I want you to get like super specific, and what I want you to think about is the internal dialogue that you tell yourself. Okay, what do you tell yourself? And based on that poll, what it sounds like a lot of you are telling yourself is that the prospect feels like I am wasting their time, right? I might be a nuisance. I might be wasting their time. Let me know in the chat, what is the internal dialogue that you tell yourself when you go to make cold calls and you're a little nervous about it, you don't really want to do it? Let me know what's going on in your head. Do you tell yourself that you might be bugging the person? Are you afraid that they might ask you a question that you don't know the answer to? What is it? Let me know in the chat. I'm a disruption. Justina, they're 7,000 times more intelligent. You know what? I think the same thing. Because when I cold call, I call VPs of sales and chief revenue officers. I'm like, dude, why would this person want to talk to me? They're running this big company. They know more than me. They're going to be super rude. I'm too young. So
yeah,
got a lot of stuff here. So I'm too young, wasting their time.
They know more than me. That's really good. That imposter syndrome.
Yeah, they know more than me.
Impatient.
Love the vulnerability, by the way, you guys. This is cool. I love that you guys are sharing this. So once we've pinpointed the trigger here, the third part that we need to do is actually do something called derail and replace. By the way, I didn't mention this, but this process is something that anyone that's gone to therapy that is trying to change a behavior has gone through a process like this. That's how I learned it. I was taught going to therapy. This is a process that people use to help other people overcome addictions, right? So it's called deconditioning. You may have heard it called pattern interruption, but what we need to do here is derail and replace. So one thing that we can do is, what I noticed, the dialogue here, the internal dialogue is all about you. And that's natural, by the way, to think about yourself in this situation. I'm too young. I might be wasting their time. They know 7,000 times more than I do. If instead what we could do is make it not about you, but about them. This is actually where, this is going to segue into objection handling really well. If we can think more about them. So what are they thinking? If a person says not interested, why would they say not interested? Let's use that as an example actually in the chat. Why would someone say not interested When you pick up the phone, you call them, you say, hey, my name's Jason with Blissful Prospecting, and they say, not interested, Jason. Why would someone say that? What are the reasons why someone might say that? Let me know in the chat. Yep, to get rid of you. Maybe they don't like salespeople. I'm not really sure. Maybe you caught them at a bad time. It's a programmed response. That's a really big one, Denise. Someone said they're bored. They're busy. Okay, so busy. Not a good time. It might have been a surprise.
I like Shannon's don't want to be sold to. And I think that goes from the you to them perspective. You're, putting the buyer first into it. Are you selling to them or are you solving a problem?
Yeah. So if what we can do is instead focus on what we're feeling and focus more on what the other person is feeling, when we're objection handling, we can actually talk to that. So I'm going to give you the framework here a little bit more towards the end, but I'll kind of give you just an example of how you might respond to something. So if someone says, hey, not interested, the very first thing that we're going to do is talk to what we think is going on in their world. We're not going to think, oh, shit, I'm too young. I need to have a fancy thing to say here. I need to get their email address. Maybe I just let them off hook, whatever it is. If instead of focusing on that, we focus on them and just say, hey, sounds like I caught you in the middle of something. And if that's the case, I could understand why now might not be the best time to take a call from me. So if we can focus on them and make it more about them, that's what objection handling is all about. Making it about them. So this is like the first little habit that you can really make sure that, hey, when I go to call this person before I pick up the phone, instead of thinking about all the reasons why I'm not a good fit, what if I thought about all the reasons why I might be a good fit? How I could help them? What they might be feeling when I'm at objection handling. They're not saying no to you because you're too young or that you're wasting their time or that they know more than you. They're just busy. Like they don't even know who you are. So we can derail and replace by looking at that trigger and really focus on the internal dialogue that you're telling yourself. And then the fourth part is this is where you need to practice. And then also reward. And this looks like a cycle like this. So the practice and reward is how can I change my identity from a salesperson that puts the prospect first and thinks more about them and makes it about the prospect and less about me? How can I practice that? And the reward doesn't have to be you buying yourself something. It could be intrinsic. It could be, I feel good when I handle objections and I don't think about the fact that I'm young or that I might be wasting your time when I handle objections first by talking to them and what they might be feeling, and I make it about them. Instead of making it about me, I make it about them. All right, we're going to come back to this. All right, I want to give you guys a couple things to think about here in the meantime, and we're going to circle back to this, okay? So the next thing that I want to talk to you about after we've gone through this deconditioning process where we're thinking about like, okay, so when a prospect gives me an objection, it's not because of any of these reasons. Like it's really because they have a lot going on and I need to focus on them and I need to talk to them. The second thing that we need to understand that's going on here is that if we just use rebuttals with prospects and we just have stock responses that we use, we're going to enter what I call the objection rebuttal infinity loop. So the way that this works is, here's what happens. Prospect says an objection, not interested. And then what do? It ends up making us feel misunderstood. When a prospect says not interested, I don't know about you, what I think is, well, you didn't even listen to what I said. Mm-hmm. How could you be not interested? I don't have enough time, but I only need 1 minute of your time. We already have a supplier, but don't you know that we're so much better than them? We start feeling misunderstood, like, well, you're giving me this objection, you're not even giving me a chance. So we end up going through this loop where prospect gives us an objection, we feel misunderstood, so we come back with a rebuttal. Hey, you know what? I've called other people that said they're not interested, and they gave me a minute to talk about how we helped this customer, and we ended up helping them or doing this sort of thing. We have some sort of canned rebuttal. Or, hey, I don't have enough time. Well, hey, do you have enough time for me to explain the reason why I'm calling? And you can let me know if you want to keep chatting. Like we go into this like rebuttal mode, and guess what? That makes the prospect also feel misunderstood. So we go through this never-ending loop where they share an objection, we feel misunderstood, so we give a rebuttal, prospect feels misunderstood and is thinking, well, doesn't this person know that I'm busy? Doesn't this person know that I don't need this right now? And what ends up happening is this like, hey, we get into this cycle where it's like, hey, I'm right, is what you're thinking. And then the prospect is thinking, well, no, dude, actually, I'm right. I'm too busy. Well, and we think, well, no, you're not. And they're like, well, yeah, I actually am really busy. We already have a solution. Well, it's not as good as mine. Actually, it is, right? We kind of go into this mode where we're like arguing almost back and forth, and it feels very confrontational, right? Mark says rebuttal mode shows you're not listening to them and it makes them wrong. Exactly. Do people want to be wrong? Think about it. Like, I always use personal training as an example. If I was a personal trainer, or if I had some extra weight on me and I'm walking into the gym and a personal trainer walks up to me and says, hey, Jason, looks like you could use a personal trainer, I'm going to be like, dude, F you, man. Right? I'm not going to be receptive to that. Right? So the way that we can break this cycle is through empathy. And I know that this is probably a huge buzzword, right? This one that you've been seeing a lot and hearing a lot of right now. And I want to talk real quick to what empathy is and what empathy is not. And then we're going to get into the framework around how to handle the objections. And we're going to go through a bunch of examples. I want to just pause real quick of what I've talked to you guys about so far. Any big takeaways? What's your biggest takeaway so far? We talked about deconditioning, making it about them and not about you, and really pinpointing that exact time where you feel call reluctant, where you feel that anxiety, whatever it might be. We've talked about the infinity loop. What's your biggest takeaway so far? Daniel says avoid rebuttal mode. Seeing the loop visually makes sense. Yeah, no problem, Ivani. Yeah, listening to the person that you're trying to sell to, make the convo about the prospect is feeling, pinpoint our triggers. Yeah, all really cool stuff. Jonathan, Jason embraces all ages with technologies that span the ages. Yes, that prospects feel misunderstood. Awesome, you guys. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk real quick about what empathy is. So what you're looking at here is essentially on this scale is the amount of effort that you put into understanding the other person and the amount that you understand them. So the further along to the right that you get on this scale, the more effort you have to put into understanding the other person. So there's 4 things on here when we look at empathy and how this fits in. The first thing is pity. So pity is when you acknowledge, this is when you acknowledge someone else's pain. I have nothing against homeless people, but I'm going to use it as an example. You see a homeless person and you're like, oh, that must suck for them. I'm acknowledging that life sucks for them, but I don't really care about it, right? I don't feel emotionally invested. That takes no effort on my part, and I'm not doing anything to help understand what's going on in their world. I pity them. Do prospects want our pity? Definitely not. Prospects definitely don't want or need our pity. If we go a level up, we have sympathy. So this is I care. All right, so sympathy is a step further, and it's acknowledging, like, I see what's going on and I care. I can't put myself in their shoes, but I care about what they're doing and what's going on. And then here's where we want to be in sales, is empathy is I feel. I can talk to what it might feel like. Go ahead, Katie.
Oh, I was just going to ask, what does this look like? How do we show that we also feel what our prospect and customers are feeling?
Yeah, so we can talk to, if we use the, hey, I don't have time for a second, like if we use that as an example for an objection, and we're going to go into like the responses here in a second, but how do you think the person is feeling when they say, I don't have time? I feel a little frustrated, might be a little busy, might have a lot of stuff going on in their life. Do you guys understand what that feeling is like? Does anyone here understand what it feels like to be overwhelmed, to feel rushed, to be bothered? Yeah? I'm seeing a couple of responses there. So just because they're a chief revenue officer or VP of something at some big company doesn't mean that you don't know how they feel. Like you could put yourself in their shoes too. If they're busy, they might have a different job with different responsibilities, but you understand the feeling of being busy. So that's empathy, right? Saying, hey, you must be really busy. Or, hey, I imagine you're probably feeling a little overwhelmed right now. Or, hey, I imagine you got a lot going on. It sounds like you got a lot going on. That's how we can empathize with the person. And I'll give you some examples here in a second. The very next thing we're going to go over, Katie, is how we respond to some of these objections. So empathy, and then the last layer here is compassion. So this is I care. So this is you investing a little bit emotionally into the prospect and caring about their situation. And where we want to live in sales is in one of these two buckets here. So that's what empathy is. It's not just saying, hey, I can see you're busy. It's going a step further and thinking about, how does this person feel? What does it feel like to be in their position? And I may not have done their job before, but you know what? Emotions are like a universal language, right? I understand how they might be feeling. All right.
We've got a question here, and I think it really ties in. How do we do this without coming off as fake, right? I mean, I'm sure we've all been on these calls in either on the receiving end or on the other side of it where it's, oh, well, we totally understand so-and-so, and you know what? And I'm like, well, no, you don't. Like, that's crap. How do we show this? How do we say that and really get the prospect to feel it?
Yeah, I think it's more about you feeling it in this case. Like Jay says, he just responded and said, be sincere, be genuine. That's like, if we come back to deconditioning, that's like the making it about them instead of making it about us part.
Yeah.
So like, if I really think about like, hey, Katie, I'm cold calling you. You say, hey, I'm busy. If I really think about like for a split second, what's Katie feeling right now? Oh, she might be feeling overwhelmed. I might have just caught her in the middle of something. She might be kind of frustrated right now.
Yeah.
I can't make you care, right? So if you don't genuinely care about the person that you're talking to and helping them, I can't really help you with that.
Yeah.
Right? So hopefully you're in sales and you care about the other person and you have that compassion. But the way that you can show that is by talking to their situation, what they might be thinking, what they might be feeling, etc. Yeah, so Shannon says, if you're feeling genuine about solving their challenge, it comes through in your voice. You have to actually care. Like, do you care? Yeah. All right. And I can see you guys are super anxious to get to the tactical stuff, so I'll get to it. So here's the framework. It's best to just explain this and give a bunch of different examples. So, okay, I'm just looking at the chat, making sure we don't have anyone else's stuff. Yeah, okay, Jocelyn. So we're going to get to that. So how do we explain this in a split second? Okay, so when we look at the EVO framework, essentially what we're going to take is the empathize part. That's the very first step. So when we get an objection, the very first thing that we need to do is empathize with the prospect. And then we validate. So we talk to how they might be feeling, where they might be coming from, and we let them know that that's okay. And in doing this, this is like a cycle that looks like this. That'll help us disarm the prospect, and it'll also help us understand a little bit more about where they're coming from. Once we do these two things, then we can go into an offer for next steps. Where we make a mistake is that oftentimes we start with this offer piece first. We start with what we want first instead of empathizing and validating with the prospect. So I'm going to give you guys an example. So Katie, we could just role play this stuff if you guys want. Okay, so in this offer piece, there's a phrase that I like to use. Would it be a bad idea? ... Okay, So let's do like the brush off, like the not interested, or you caught me at a bad time, or whatever you want to do. Like literally cut me off as I'm like introducing myself in the top of the
Perfect.
cold call. Okay.
And hey, Sean, I hope you're listening because not only are we answering your question, but we are role playing this for you. So I'm putting my Karen hat on. I am ready for this.
Yeah. So if you just, I'll just do a ring ring, and then you say hello, and then we'll dig into it. Okay.
Okay.
Ring ring.
Hello.
Hey, Katie, this is Jason with Blissful Prospect.
Jason, I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm not interested. I don't have time.
Hey, totally understand. Sounds like I caught you in the middle of something, which if that's the case, I could definitely understand why now wouldn't be the best time to talk. But you know what? Can I get like 30 seconds? I can tell you the reason why I'm calling, and then you could decide if you want to keep chatting. Does that sound okay?
You know what? I'm starting a stop clock. You only get 30 seconds. You're at 26 now.
And then I can go into the reason for my call, right? Just like you would on any other cold call. Hey, I was on your website, or hey, I was on your LinkedIn. I saw this piece of thing about you. Here's how we help people, et cetera. So right there, empathize. So yeah. I can say things like, hey, sounds like, right? Sounds like I caught you in the middle of something. Sounds like you're busy, right? And then I validate. I let them know it's okay. It's totally okay that you're busy right now. And then I ask for permission. Go ahead, Katie.
I was just going to say, I loved this asking for permission. A lot of people call this the upfront contract. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember who originally started this concept, but I think
Sandler. Yeah, Sandler training. Yeah.
Of course, it's a Sandler training. Yep. But I absolutely love this idea and this conversation because it really disarms your prospect and allows for the no, and allows for kind of that different conversation around, oh, you actually care what I have to say. Like if I say no, you'll actually leave me alone. And yeah, I think that's fabulous. So if you're not using that yet, definitely get in on that upfront contract.
So empathize with a person. Sounds like you're busy. Sounds like I caught you in the middle of something. Whatever it is that you want to say. By the way, I'm not giving you guys a script on purpose. It's not about using the specific words that I just did. It's about the framework. It's about really empathizing with what you think might be going on and why they would say that, letting them know it's okay so that you can disarm the person, and then you can go into an offer. So you could say, hey, would it be a bad idea? You could say, well, hey, do you have 30 seconds, whatever it might be. Like a way that you can do your own permission-based opener is you can do something like this. So that upfront contract is basically the formula for that is empathize plus a specific amount of time plus permission. So you could do any variation of that. So sometimes what I'll do is, awesome, Katie. Well, hey, I know I caught you on a Monday morning here. You probably got a lot planned. Empathize, right? Or, hey, I know I caught you on a Monday morning. You probably got a lot of meetings planned for today. Time doesn't have to be 30 seconds. Could be 27 seconds is another popular one that I hear. Could be, hey, do you have a minute? Or, hey, do you have 1 to 2 minutes? Or I can tell you the reason for my call, and you let me know if you want to keep chatting. You're going to do that permission-based opener.
Yep.
Yeah, so Martone says, can you explain how tone of voice can also impact the way that you come across from sounding genuine or fake, or just going through the motions with a prospective client? The way that I find tone really takes care of itself is if I go in to the call from a place of curiosity. So if I go into the call from a place of curiosity and I make it about them, so like what I'm thinking is, I know Katie's probably the right person to talk with, but I'm really curious if she's having a problem that I can help her with. So I'm going to go in with that tonality, and it's, hey, Katie, Jason with Blissful Prospecting. Like that tone right there will take care of itself if you can lead with curiosity. Be curious about whether or not you could help them. Don't go into the call assuming that, oh, I did all this research. They look like the best fit. They need to use our product or service. Come in from a place of curiosity. So John says, is the validate piece something you say, or is it inferred from the empathize and your tone? You need to let them know. That's totally understandable, is something you could say. So it sounds like I caught you in the middle of something, or hey, sounds like now isn't the best time, which I totally understand. Or you could say, which is totally valid, or yeah, and I'm totally cold calling you in the middle of your day here, right? Any variation of that, I'm letting them know that how they are feeling is okay.
Mm-hmm.
So no different than if anyone has a spouse here, and back when we could like go into the workplace, and depending on where you're living, you may or may not be driving into work. But your spouse comes home, has a bad day at work, and they come home and say, dude, I just had the roughest day, right? What you're not supposed to do in that case, and men, we are guilty of this, is, oh, well, maybe you should just get a new job. Or you know what, you complain a lot. Or you know what, your boss isn't that bad. Or, hey, you must be doing something, Katie, right? Versus empathizing with, hey, sounds like you had a rough day, which is totally understandable because your boss sounds like an asshole. Right? I'm going to let them know that how they're feeling is okay.
Yeah. So I'm curious, how do you feel about when people say, it's very like, tell them that their feelings validated? Do you think that can come off as unauthentic, or are there, obviously you've given us examples of better phrases, but for those that like to use that term, do you think that helps with this authentic feeling?
Well, authenticity keeps coming up. And like, I don't think that you can just be authentic.
Yeah.
I think authenticity and being genuine it's either part of your identity and you believe in it, or you don't. So I don't think that if you're trying to pretend to be authentic or sound authentic, I think that's the wrong sort of thing here. I think you need to be authentic. Like it is a being, it is part of your identity. So do you really care about the fact that this person said that they're busy? Do you really care about validating that real quick and letting them know that it's okay? Do you really care about that? Jonathan, but I want an empathetic authenticity hack now. There's no hacks. Like you either give a shit about the other person or you don't, And that's the part in sales. Like hopefully you're in sales because you care about other people. I know you care about hitting your quota, but hopefully you care about helping people, right?
Yeah.
Martone says, I understand where you're coming from. Hey, that's a really good line that you could use too. Hey, sounds like I caught you in the middle of something. And, hey, I can totally understand where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Another line that I like to use is like, you could just be really transparent about the fact that it's a cold call, right? Hey, sounds like I caught you in the middle of something. And you know what? Plus I'm cold calling you right in the middle of your day.
Oh yeah. I have seen so many positive responses to putting that comedy, like, this is the elephant in the room. Look, I know you're an exec, you're busy, you're getting all these cold calls. And sometimes by positioning that, it actually kind of opens that door for you, right? Of, this is awkward for me too. I would just really appreciate you just listening for a minute. Obviously don't say that, but adding that comedy to it can definitely alleviate some of the anxiety around it as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I really like Janen's question on here. When doing outreach to other salespeople, we feel like they know our tricks and tend to respond a little harshly. Is there a different approach that you think would be more effective, or a different way to position this?
This is not a trick. Yeah, I'm going to keep coming back to that. I'm going to push back really hard on that, Katie. I know I'm pushing back on that hard.
Love it.
I'm going to push back because this is not a trick. I didn't give you any people get so caught up around what is the exact words I should use when I open up a cold call. You know what? The best cold callers don't have magic lines, you guys. They just don't have magic lines. They don't have magic ways that respond to objections. But the question is a very fair question, right? If I go in and have these canned lines that I'm calling salespeople and they already know like what some of these canned lines are, how can I do this and be a little bit more myself? How can I actually empathize and say, hey, yeah, sounds like I caught you in the middle of something, man.
Yeah. I like that. That's really good.
Hack is a 4-letter word, Jonathan said. John Buchanan says, thank you for taking my call. I know I'm calling you out of the blue. Before I go any further, you have a moment for me to share why I called. That's not bad, John. What do you think of the comedic responses above? Mark says,
oh, they're hey, so-and-so, no need to grab a jacket. This isn't that cold of a call. I love a good dad joke. Yeah. Personally, not everyone does.
So if that's authentic to you, if you're like the dad joke type of person, do it. That's personally not my style. I would never use that line, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't work though. Like
Yeah.
I could totally picture something, and tonality is going to be a really big part of that. It's like, hey, Katie, thanks for taking my call. No need to grab a jacket, by the way. This isn't going to be that cold of a call, but it is a cold call. Do you have a minute? I could tell you why I'm calling, and you can let me know if you want to keep chatting. Right. So I would recommend, so Shannon, you had sort of asked this around like, if I'm calling into salespeople and sales leaders and they already kind of know these lines, well, make up your own permission-based opener then. Just empathize with something. So if I call someone on Mondays, I gave you that example. If I call someone on a Friday afternoon, I'm like, hey, Katie, I know I'm catching you on the Friday afternoon here, and I hope you have some fun stuff planned this weekend, but I was curious if you had a minute. I can tell you why I'm calling, and you can let me know if you want to keep chatting.
That's good. Yeah. Yes, I really like, I think Mark, please forgive me, I think its name's Martone, but this sounds like it's customer service with a little bit of psychology behind it.
Exactly.
I think that's really insightful.
Yep. So let's talk about some of the other objections. All right. So we talked about like not interested, or hey, you caught me at a bad time. Like if someone just like cuts you off at the beginning of your cold call, I would think about, hey, am I using some sort of permission-based opener, right? Am I doing something to prevent? That was the part we didn't talk about, was how do we prevent this from happening next time? So if you're finding that people cut you off in the middle of your cold call at the beginning a lot, should you maybe do something different here, right? So I'm going to give you actually one more example. When we talk about creating your own permission-based opener, I have a person in one of our boot camps. She works at a bank. So she's calling into companies that already have a bank. And guess what objection she gets a lot? We already have a bank. So she actually builds that into her cold call opener. Hey, I'm calling from bank of whatever state it is. And hey, I know you probably already got a bank, but I did some research and had some ideas to share with you. Do you got a minute or two? I can ask you a few questions to see if this is relevant. You can let me know if you want to keep talking, right? So I'm going to build that into my cold call opener. Cool. All right, so let me just start with a blank slate here. Let me know in the chat, what objection do you guys want to hear next? We talked about not interested. We talked about some of these shallow ones. What objections are you getting? Let me know in the chat. What are you getting that you want to hear us go through right now?
I do have a quick question from Will. He's wondering, how do we incorporate this in voicemails to get a higher return call rate?
I mean, I don't think objection handling necessarily applies to voicemails unless I'm missing something here in the question. With voicemails, I can give you the best practice for voicemails. What I like to do with a voicemail is, hey, Katie, I use a structure called the reply method. So with voicemails, I'm going to do, hey, Jason, and then I'm going to open with my personalization. I'm going to do the empathy piece next. So that's problem. And then I'm going to do relevant results. And then CTA to email. So that's going to sound something like this. Hey, Katie, was on your LinkedIn. I noticed that you guys are hiring a bunch of SDRs right now. And one of the challenges that I'm hearing from SDR leaders is that ramping reps in a remote environment is a very big challenge because none of their training is online and in a way where they can do that remotely. We're actually helping some other companies like A, B, and C that are very similar to get their reps ramped up faster. No need to call me back. I'm about to send an email to you right now, and the subject line is, hey, Katie, just left a voicemail. So again, no need to call me back. I'm going to send you an email right now. The subject line is, hey, Katie, just left a voicemail. That's what I recommend for voicemails. This structure is part of something. You can check it out on our site. It's called the reply method. It works for email, works for phone, works for voicemail. But the CTA, I like to point people to the email. So don't go for the call back, actually point them to something else, or maybe point them to the LinkedIn message that you sent them, or the audio message, or the video message, or whatever it might be. Does it answer your question, Katie, on the voicemails? I forget whose question that was, but
that's great.
yeah. The objection handling, that doesn't really fit into the voicemail game.
Yeah.
Good question though. Awesome, Will. Sweet. Okay, so let's look at some of the objections. So let's look at already have a vendor.
Oh, that's a good one.
All right, so if we empathize and then validate, you might say something like this. Hey, we already have a vendor. Sounds like you're taken care of. Or sounds like you're happy. Just say that right there. What do you think is on their mind? When someone says, I already have a vendor, I'm already taken care of, they're thinking, well, I'm already happy. Like, why are you continuing to talk? I don't need to talk to you, is what the person's thinking. So why don't we just say that? Hey, sounds like you're happy. And then the validate piece, what I like to say, and what we train is, hey, and you're probably wondering why you would want to continue talking to someone like me if you already got a solution in place. So I'm going to empathize. Sounds like you're happy. Sounds like you're taken care of. You're probably wondering why talk to someone like me. And you could pause there and just see what the prospect says, right? Depending on where this is at in the cold call and how much rapport you have established. And then we're going to go into our offer. That's the would it be a bad idea? But hey, would it be a bad idea if I shared with you how companies like A, B, and C are solving for this specific problem that they're having? In hopes that you might take something from that. I just let them talk. Yeah, later, Jonathan. Thanks for the engagement, man, and the participation. So I'm going to empathize. Hey, sounds like you're happy. Sounds like you're taken care of. You're probably wondering why you would want to continue talking to someone like me. Another technique that gets talked about a lot, Chris Voss talks about this, you could do mirroring. So if someone's like, hey, I have a solution in place, you could repeat, right, the last couple words, back to them. Hey, sounds like, we have a solution in place. We've already got a solution in place for this. Oh, you already have a solution in place? So you could repeat back the last couple words. And then that's a way that you can empathize and better learn where they're coming from. And then you can validate, well, hey, sounds good. Sounds like you're taken care of. I'm sure you're wondering why you would even want to continue talking to someone like me, or why you would want to even entertain the idea of doing something differently. So Jay says, if you could change one thing about your current program vendor, what would it be? That's not a bad question. I get kind of mixed feedback, when I ask that, but you could do the same. Hey, sounds like you're happy, and you're probably wondering, why it would make sense to continue talking to someone like me. But I'm really curious, if you could change one thing about your current program or vendor, like what would it be?
So I'm curious, Jason, why do we ask, would it be a bad idea versus would it be a good idea?
Yeah, so the would it be a bad idea is this like psychology of going for no. So one thing that, okay, I'll give you a bad example of this is, Ben Stevens says go for no. I'll give you a bad example, and that's when I was selling house painting services. That was my first sales job. I did that for like 4 years. Did that myself and then taught people how to do it. What we would do when we're presenting the contract is I'd say things like this. So Katie, you wanted to paint the house gray, right? Yeah. Hey, Katie, you wanted to include the eaves, right? Yeah. Hey, Katie, you wanted 2 coats on the house, right? And I would go down this yes trap. And the whole time the prospect is thinking, okay, if I don't say yes, I'm going to sound like an idiot, but I don't really want to say yes to this. Like I kind of get what's going on. So people are kind of conditioned to say yes and not really entirely mean it and be truthful. So John says people feel more comfortable saying no than yes. Yes makes you feel like you're getting trapped. Exactly. That's exactly it. So the would it be a bad idea is going for that no. You want the person to be like, oh, actually, no, it wouldn't be a bad idea at all. So another book that you guys should check out, I know it's getting like over talked about if you consume content on LinkedIn, is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Great book. Really great book. He didn't come up with the psychology of some of this stuff. He really popularized it though. So that's why we got to go for no.
Love that.
Would it be a bad idea? Hey, would it be crazy if we did this? Cool. So that's how we handle, so Ramon, so what was the name of the book? I'll throw it into the chat real quick. Never split the difference. Cool. All right, so let's go back.
We've got about 5 minutes left here. So I'll let you kind of finish up, and then we'll try and get 1 or 2 more questions and then go from there. Does that work?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
So if we look at budget, so if we do budget, again, we're going to empathize, right? And then validate. Hey, it's not in our budget. Hey, totally understand. Sounds like things are pretty tight right now. Or, hey, sounds like you're being really careful about where you guys are spending money right now with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
That's the empathize piece. Validate. I actually think that's really smart, and a lot of other companies are doing that too. So I'm not going to be confrontational with what they're talking about, with what they're saying. If I get a budget-related objection, COVID, hey, sounds like you guys are being really careful with where you spend money, which I think is really smart right now. I'm seeing a lot of other companies do that as well. So I'm going to validate and let them know that, hey, it's okay that they feel that way. It's okay that they want to hold on. It's okay that they're nervous right now to make decisions with COVID. And then we're going to go in the offer piece. So the offer piece is like sharing what other companies are doing that's working for them, right? One of the benefits that you have as a salesperson is that you work with a ton of other companies, and you actually get to see what other companies, like their competitors and other folks like themselves, are doing to solve for these problems. So, but hey, would it be a bad idea to show you how these companies are solving for this problem? And then you can decide if you want to keep chatting after that. Cool. Hey, would it be a bad idea if we took some time? We can schedule 15 minutes at a time that works for you when I'm not cold calling you in the middle of your day here, and I can talk to how other companies are solving for this challenge right now, so that you can get some useful tidbits, regardless of if you decide to use our solution or not.
That's great.
Cool. So that's the process. So real quick, I just wanted to come back. This deconditioning piece, like you really got to, like when you're objection handling, think about like, what happens? Do you freeze up? Do you get anxious? Do you forget what to say? Whatever it is, like how can you pinpoint that trigger? And usually it's the internal dialogue that you tell yourself, like, oh God, well, this person's asking me a question. They probably think I'm too young, or they probably think I'm wasting their time. When really, if you just make it about them, they're just busy. Probably not a good time. They might have been surprised. They don't want to be sold, right? And if we can talk to those things, we can do a much better job when it comes to objection handling. So did you want to get to like another question or?
Yeah, let's do.
Okay, I don't know what we got time for.
Yeah, let's do one more question. Let's see here. How do we handle pressure from upper management saying we need to ask for more meetings at every given opportunity?
Yeah, that's a really tough one, and I feel for you. Because like asking for the meeting, I'm assuming like kind of at the root there is like you're feeling really salesy, right? You're feeling like super pushy, salesy, like that sort of stuff. A lot of times what you can do before you ask for something is just kind of preemptively talk about how that question might make the other person feel. So it's like, Katie, I know this might be, feel maybe a little bit intrusive, but I had a quick question on how you're handling this because it would help me figure out if this might be a good fit for you guys or not. So I'm not wasting your time.
Yeah.
Right. If you can preemptively talk about how it's going to make them feel, or, hey, I know that we've only talked here for about a minute or two, but I wouldn't be doing my job unless I asked, for us to set up a time to talk later. And I think that we could cover these topics that would be helpful. Right. So I think that like really think about like, oh, this is making me feel salesy, like really think about that feeling and how can you decondition, right? And focus more on the prospect and think about what the benefit is for them to meet and really talk to that. That's what I would really focus on. That's my advice.
Love that. Well, you guys, we are at about a minute till. Jason, this has just been amazing. I know every single person that's been on here has been able to take away some really actionable items. We've been learning everything from how do we express our empathy? How do we kind of retrain our brain to not be anxious when asking, when picking up the phone and dealing with objections. And I mean, just so much. For those of you that want to learn more from Jason, and if you have questions and we didn't get to it, please join us 2 weeks, November 18th. He is going to be doing an Ask Me Anything session with Sales Hacker. So go to saleshacker.com, sign up if you don't already have an account. We'll have a post there and you can start posting questions, and we'll also be going through things live. I also want to give a huge shout out to Olivia Hammond. You just posed some really great ideas and some good discussions. And so we would love to send you some Sales Hacker swag. So let's get in touch after this. And if you have any other questions, like I said, please don't hesitate to post it at saleshacker.com in our community discussion board, and you'll get answers not just from Jason, but from all of our fabulous members. So anything else that you want to add?
No, I would love to connect with you guys. So there's two ways that you can do that. Blissfulprospecting.com. We got a ton of free content over there if you want more. We also run boot camps and stuff like that. And then on LinkedIn, I post content every day on outbound and prospecting. So you can find me just Jason Bay on LinkedIn. So would love to connect with you guys.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And we will see you in a few weeks for Jason's AMA. Talk soon.
Cool. Thank you, Katie. See ya later, guys.
Bye.